What's up, homies? The Comics Kid 2099 here. I have a graphic novel that I want to talk to you guys about. It is Cable and X-Force Volume 1, Wanted. This series started shortly after Avengers vs. X-Men, and this is the first 5 issues of that series. And basically, the premise is Cable, he's this guy on the cover with the eye patch. He's a time-displaced son of Cyclops, very long story short. And in this story, he is getting visions from the future. And we're not really sure where these visions are coming from, but they are telling him of big disasters that are going to be happening. And so he puts together a team so that he can prevent these disasters from happening. And he mentions, listen, there's only a certain way that we can do this, because if we do it any other way, it's going to blow up in our faces. And a little bit of a spoiler, but it ends up blowing up in their faces anyway, and so by the end of this volume, they all end up being terrorists in the eyes of the US government because they did something. They were trying to save the planet. They were trying to stop this thing from escalating into a really nightmarish scenario, but then Cable is kind of an idiot, and instead of just explaining himself to the Avengers and saying, listen, this is why I did what I did, this is what's happening right now, instead of doing that, he said, no, we're going to escape, and we're not going to explain ourselves at all. I have no idea why he couldn't just explain himself. Maybe it's because they mention in one of the issues here that he tried to kill the Avengers at one point. I think that happened in a miniseries called X-Sanction. I haven't read X-Sanction, so I don't know. And that's really, if I had one complaint about any of the Marvel Now stuff, my one umbrella complaint, it's that all of these books, for the most part, are doing a really good job of being very new reader friendly. If you've never read a Hulk comic before, you can pick up Indestructible Hulk and it's going to read very well. You don't have to have a knowledge of the last 50 years of Hulk. But they do mention stuff that happened in Avengers vs. X-Men, and in All New X-Men they do, and in Uncanny Avengers they do, and here they do. So if you haven't read Avengers vs. X-Men, I haven't, you might be a little bit lost. Now, I know the very rough, vague plot of Avengers vs. X-Men, but I haven't read it, and so every time any of these Marvel Now books kind of references that story, I keep saying, man, they've really missed a golden opportunity to really make all of these books very new reader friendly for a new wave of people coming in, or even people who have been reading for a while, but maybe they haven't been reading this particular character, and now's a great jumping on point. Oh, except that they are really miring this whole thing in Avengers vs. X-Men Aftermath. That's really my one complaint about all of the Marvel Now stuff that I've read so far, but maybe there is a Marvel Now series out there that doesn't do that. Maybe, I don't know, Nova, since Nova was a new character and he wasn't involved in Avengers vs. X-Men, maybe that series doesn't mention it. I don't know. Getting back to Cable and X-Force, this series is pretty okay. It's very enjoyable, I will say that. All of the character interactions here are very solid, very enjoyable in my opinion. Forge, he's in this book, and the last time that we saw him, he was kind of acting like a crazy person in Warren Ellis's Astonishing X-Men. And they kind of sort of address that, but they kind of sort of also sweep it under the rug. And I'm of two minds on that, because on the one hand, if a character acts in a certain way, I don't want it to just be swept under the rug, because then that makes me think that any character acting any sort of way can just be swept under the rug if a later creator doesn't like it. And that just seems kind of lazy to me. On the other hand, Forge being crazy in Astonishing X-Men, that was kind of just lazy writing anyway. Forge was never crazy, and that whole story was just kind of badly done, and so I kind of like that they fixed Forge. Having said that, at one point, Forge mentions that he would like to face his lumps and kind of face the music, rather. Take his lumps and face the music. And he wants to kind of just get the past out of the way, you know, take responsibility for what he did in that Astonishing X-Men story, and then he never does that. That's a little bit problematic. Personally, I feel like Forge would face the music. I feel like he would kind of try and take responsibility for something that he's done. Now, granted, it's been a very long time since that story, at least, you know, for us, that was like 2008 or something like that when Forge went crazy. So a lot of stuff has happened in the Marvel Universe since then and now. But having said that, it seems a little false that Forge is talking about trying to take responsibility for what he's done, and then he acts like the goofy sidekick to Cable's grim and gritty serious team here for the rest of this book. That's a little bit problematic, but I can ignore that if the rest of the interactions are solid and good. And in my opinion, the rest of the interactions are solid and good. Dr. Nemesis acts like Dr. Nemesis, and that's fantastic. Colossus, he's maybe the one character I really don't understand why he's in this book. I get the feeling that after Avengers vs. X-Men, all the X-Men teams were kind of shuffled around a little bit, and nobody really had anything for Colossus to do, so Dennis Hopeless was like, okay, I guess I'll take Colossus. Now, I don't know if that's what happened, but it seems like that's what happened, because all of these other characters, they fit in the idea of a terrorist mutant team who is trying to save the planet, but they look like bad guys while they're trying to save the planet. All of these other guys, they totally fit in that type of series. Colossus definitely does not. And Colossus really feels the most foreign to me out of all of these characters here. He was always kind of the gentle, poetic artist type. He was never really someone who I would say, yeah, I want him to be part of my squad of people who are possibly going to have to be killing people in order to save the planet. Even with him being like super strong and everything, he's still not someone who I would really pick for that type of team. And so that's why it seems to me that Dennis Hopeless was saying, well, fine, I'll take Colossus if nobody else wants him. In my opinion, Colossus would have worked a lot better as a staff member at one of the schools, specifically probably the Wolverine school. I would have rather seen him there instead of being on an X-Force team, but whatever. He's handled reasonably well. He doesn't want to be on a killing team. He wants to be on a team that saves lives. And then, spoiler, when the team has to make a killing decision, Colossus is very upset with it, and we see that he does take responsibility for his actions. A little bit of a spoiler there. Also kind of comparing him to Forge a little bit. The other characters that we have here, we have Cable, who I mentioned, we have Domino, and then we have Hope. Hope Summers is in this, but weirdly enough, she is not on the cover, and she doesn't do a whole lot of interacting with the team. She's with them for a little bit, but she's not with them on many of the missions. She is with Domino on one mission, but it's kind of this thing where Cable keeps saying, no, she is absolutely 100% not going to be on this team. But at the same time, we know that she's going to be part of this book, that she's going to be a supporting character in this book. So I kind of wish that the writers, the creators here would just say, yeah, let's just put Hope on the team, and then let's just be done with it. It makes sense why Cable doesn't want her on the team. I totally buy that. It feels like, okay, they're going to keep having to contrive ways to put Hope on this team when Cable doesn't want her on the team. And that's going to be a little frustrating, having to keep see them try and find ways to have Hope once again work her way into this team, and then once again have to find some way for Cable to abandon her somewhere so that she doesn't keep working with the team. That's going to be a little frustrating. My two big complaints, other than what I've already complained about, I should mention I really did like this book. I want to get that out of the way. It may sound like I don't like it, but I did enjoy this book. But I did have some complaints. One, these visions from the future that Cable is receiving. I have a feeling that the payoff is going to be kind of disappointing. That's a big mystery here. Who is sending him these visions? Where are they coming from? I have a feeling that is going to... Eventually they're going to get to answering that, and it's not going to be as good as what we hope that it is. It's one of those things where when you set up this big mystery and then you string it along for a little while, by the time you answer the mystery, it's kind of a disappointment. It's never going to match up what's in your head. I kind of feel like that's the same thing that's what's going on here. And also, at one point, Deathlock shows up in this story. Now, Deathlock, up until like 3 years ago, was barely a member of the Marvel Universe. Like, he had some stories set in the far future that were done in the 1970s, and then he had some stories that were set in the present day in the 1990s, but really, Deathlock wasn't a character that a lot of people knew about or cared about. And then suddenly, he's like a major character in Uncanny X-Force by Rick Remender, which is set before this, and now he shows up here on the scene of a crime, and he's kind of sort of a bad guy. And I am very, very confused. Is this the same Deathlock that was helping Uncanny X-Force in Rick Remender's run, or is this an entirely different Deathlock? Is this the same Deathlock, but he has different programming? I'm very confused. How many Deathlocks are there? I don't know any of these answers. I really don't. It's not that I'm playing devil's advocate and I'm pretending like I'm a new reader who would be confused by something. I'm legitimately confused. I don't know enough about Deathlock, and so every time he shows up, I am confused just all to heck about it. But that's really the only thing, and that's another thing, is that Deathlock, they're kind of playing that as an ongoing mystery too, because by the end of this volume, we don't know what Deathlock was doing there, and Cable is kind of he wants to figure out what was Deathlock doing there, what was his purpose there, but first we have this other mission that I'm getting from the powers that be, and so I get the feeling that by the time that Deathlock mystery is revealed, it's not going to be as good as what we have imagined in our minds also. So those are two ongoing mysteries in this book, and I have a feeling by the time they are kind of sorted out, it's going to be like, oh, okay, that was a little disappointing. Having said that, though, the character interactions in this book are very solid. For the most part, I buy that this team has to stay on the run. They're trying to save the planet, but they appear to be outlaws to the rest of the world. For the most part, I buy that. I just think it's a lot stupid that Cable couldn't just explain himself to Havoc and Captain America, especially since Havoc said, listen, I know that you probably did this for a very good reason. You just have to explain it to me. And then Cable's like, screw you. No, we're going to run away. Cable is kind of sort of quickly becoming one of my less favorite characters, just because of stuff like this where he acts incredibly stupid. And he is not handled like a character that you really like in this book. He's kind of my least favorite character in this book also. So personally, I would have been very fine with this just being another X-Force team and just take Cable out of the equation. But since it's called Cable and X-Force, well, he kind of has to be in the book. So that's about all I have to say about this book. I enjoyed it. I will definitely be picking up Volume 2. I wasn't really sure about this way back when the whole Marvel Now lineup of books was announced, but I ended up really liking this. I had heard some good things about it, and it turns out it's pretty solid. So it's not the best thing I've ever read, but it's pretty solid, and that's a good enough recommendation for me. So if you like adventure and kind of anti-heroic superhero stuff, then I would suggest picking up Volume 1 of Cable and X-Force Wanted. That's all I have to say about this book. I will be back with another video tomorrow, so until then, I hope that you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.